Welcome. I'm here today with Colonel John Mills, who also goes by the name Colonel Rhett John Mills. He's retired from the military and has an excellent Substack and Getter post, and he's really all over the internet with very many interesting ideas. And I was recently a guest on his show, and we got into so many interesting things. I wanted to have him back today to follow up. Uh, Today, it's March 18th. It's where the Supreme Court is holding oral arguments on Murthy v. Missouri, and John is named in the suit. I'm sure as a plaintiff, and we want to get into that. I also want to get into talking about TikTok and the piece of legislation that's being pushed through. Went through the House and now is on to the Senate. And these two cases, or these two topics, really relate to each other. John, what's your role in the suit that's before the court today?
Well, thank you, Bill. An honor to be on your show. So Murthy v. Missouri, which used to be Missouri v. Biden, is such an important case to the trajectory of our constitutional republic. So Murthy, now known as Murthy v. Missouri, it's essentially about collusion of DHS, CISA, FBI, working with big tech to silence and censor Americans. I'm personally number 862 on the top 10,000 most suppressed on Twitter, and for some reason, I'm not let back on. Very mysterious. My lawyers had me double check, and Twitter says, nope, you are absolutely not getting back on. I don't know what I did that was so interesting or egregious. But this case is about unlawful silencing and censoring Americans. And it really traces to Elvis Chan, FBI agent Elvis Chan. That is his name. I didn't make that up. It's and Laura Demlow, who were taking briefcases full of names.
Sound like names from a bad B movie, but.
Yeah, I didn't know Elvis Chan, and when I first heard that name, I had to look that up and verify that was really his name.
Well, let me help set the stage for I mean, you and I are pretty close to this, and I'd like to set the stage. This is really about what happened when the White House was instructing the social media companies to suppress, ban, censor people who are using their free speech rights on the various social media platforms to speak out against the draconian measures the White House was taking to lock down the country, require us to take vaccines, wear masks, social distance, and all the other sort of egregious things that were happening. There are a lot of good reasons to speak out about it, and yet the White House and other parts of the government intervened and interfered and directed aggressively the social media companies to do these things at their behest. And the thing that makes this a Supreme Court issue is that government isn't supposed to censor us, and government is not supposed to be able to censor us by directing others to do it. And in this case, they were clearly doing that. And there's a long and disturbing set of emails that went between the White House and the other federal government agencies and the social media companies. So with that as a setup, John, now that I can now respect you as number 862 on the Twitter banned list, and by the way, I want to understand how they got to that particular number. What was your role in this, and where were you? Where did you come into the censorship? Was that part were you censored speaking out against the government at this time?
Well, it's unclear. I disappeared on January 7th. I don't know what I did that was so egregious. I know on January 6th, and I didn't enter the Capitol or go on the Capitol grounds, but I took a picture of a group of youth that were clearly Antifa and posted that. And I said, note, Antifa group ready to cause trouble. In about 10 minutes, they bolted and ran. And I've always wondered, and I did another post, were they informed by it's called the National Capital Region Law Enforcement Intelligence Fusion Center, which is both a state, county, and federal activity that monitors right in the National Capital Region, where was this Antifa group notified that they had been spotted? I don't know.
So this was January 7th, 2021, after the events at the Capitol Hill.
Right. On January 6th, I had done this post.
And how does this bear on the case before the court today, or is this just why you got banned on Twitter?
Well, it's unclear. Now, I have, and what Elvis Chan and Laura Demlow were doing actually traces to a program I helped set up in, the 2000s, starting in 2007, the relationship building between the U.S. government and big tech. At the time, we thought, hey, this is a good idea. The U.S. government has kind of disappeared from Silicon Valley. We should build bridges and relationships. We did talk about relationships with big tech, and big tech always wanted to be indemnified to work with the U.S. government. That was always their key request. But that was long before Laura Demlow and Elvis Chan.
When was this, John?
I started this. I was asked to start setting this up in 2007, 2008. So
So 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah. Yes. And it really morphed over time. I wrote the white paper in 2009, which was about the first U.S. government office in Silicon Valley, which now DOD has one, NSA has one, the CIA has one, the bigger intelligence community, DNI has one, DHS has several. Now we have competing U.S. government offices in Silicon Valley. Everybody wants a piece of the action. And so that's really the genesis of where Laura Demlow and Elvis Chan trace to.
So, but help me up. Let's pick up the thread, though. We've got this case, Missouri v. Murphy, which used to be Missouri v. Biden. And what's at stake here is that the federal government is clearly violating our constitutional rights and directing the social media companies to censor us. And let's hope this is an open and shut case. It won in the lower courts and in Court of Appeals, and now it's before the Supreme Court. And if we get a good ruling here, that's going to be quite a blow for free speech.
Absolutely. It's so important for the few, because I didn't get through 40 years of government work and working to support the government without being charged or indicted. I always knew my legal boundaries. And, on your second line or your second paragraph of your action memo, you always have to cite the legal citation of what gives you the legal basis for doing what you're doing. And there was absolutely zero legal basis for what they're doing.
Well, that's patently true. They were telling these companies that if they didn't do their bidding, that they would be investigated, fined, lose their rights under the Federal Communications Act, and it was flat out coercion. And we hope we win. Now the issue also before us today is TikTok. You mentioned something about the TikTok algorithms and what that is doing to make it so addictive.
Yeah, it's really, it's tailored mass psychosis. It's the intersection of big data analytics, and artificial intelligence actioning. So there's no human on keyboard saying, hey, we want to send this out of our billion users, we want to send this message to this person. It helps create the digital twin. There literally is a digital twin strategy, just like there's a biowarfare strategy. China looks at biowarfare as the strategic commanding heights of showdown with America, ergo Wuhan. there's a parallel strategy called the digital twin strategy. They are literally every one of us, you, me, they're making a digital twin of, using TikTok to understand everything about us, our attitudes, our interests, our emotions, what triggers us. And they can tailor the feed right back to you with positive and negative confirmation of our interests that will just trigger those who are easily triggered. Let's say those who have gender dysphoria, they can just spin them into the ceiling with this. They say, well, it's a billion users. That's how can you do that? You don't have a billion analysts sitting their hands on keyboard. This is all AI driven at the speed of cyber. So
How is TikTok's algorithm any different from Google's?
Well, I think one is there is a modicum. Still, there has to be a lot of accountability with Google or Facebook. We have a lot of issues with them, but there's a modicum of bumper cushions of legal boundaries, a modicum. With TikTok, even though their argument is, hey, we're a U.S. incorporation, but I've done the business forensics. But they're owned, owned by BitDance, which is by its own description, a privately held Chinese company. I mean, privately held, we have no idea what it is. We have no idea.
Well, we know it's controlled by the Communist Party.
Right,
It's not that mysterious. We know who their officers are, and half of them are members of the Politburo.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But TikTok is mass psychosis at the speed of cyber, enabled by artificial intelligence actioning, and to spin viewers just into the ceiling. And they're very effective. Why do those who have some gender dysphoria, why do they just love TikTok? Well, they love TikTok because positive and negative affirmation, both are necessary to just drive these viewers and participants just bat guano crazy, and it works quite well.
Does ByteDance have a version of TikTok in China?
Well, yeah, Dayu, but it's watered down. It's closely monitored. It's lots of images of Chinese loving on golden retrievers, and because they want to show how Chinese love dogs. And it's funny because only a few years ago they were freaking out because they realized most of the rest of the world didn't eat dogs.
Well, Chinese love dogs because they love them for dinner.
Yeah, they do, but now it's a 180-degree U-turn as they realize that triggers most of the rest of the world.
Bad PR move in the United States to, okay, but that's in China. They're trying to convince Chinese to love dogs rather than put them on the menu.
Yeah. It's and you also, even for their equivalent, which is really, it has no triggering messages. It's all about loving the CCP. China is great. United States is evil. United States is in chaos. Even there, you are rationed very closely through the social credit monitoring system.
Well, have you looked at the bill that was passed?
Yeah. I read the 12 pages actually last night. I went through it in detail. It's shorter, 12 pages. It probably could be shorter than 12 pages. It's very complex, and I think you could drive a semi truck sideways through it with 100 feet to spare on each end, which TikTok and globalists probably love. That's the way they love legislation, because it gives the president, it names 4 bad nations, it names China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. That's good. But it has a number of caveats, like it has to be it doesn't name TikTok, but it can be other malign companies, but you have to have more than a billion users. Well, that's a very, very small set of players. And it gives the president authority to kind of investigate and essentially sanction others. And it's like, wow, what are they going to do? Are they going to sanction Elon Musk because of a faux Russia connection right before the 24 election?
Well, yeah, I think you're on to what I think is the biggest problem with this piece of legislation. It's not just about TikTok. You mentioned the four countries, but it also could be used to throw a net over all other any other social media site or websites. And I guess the language here is to ban. It gives the president the power. Right now, we know that is Joe Biden, but any future president the power to ban websites and apps run by, quote, a person subject to the direction or control of a foreign person or entity. And, we got Biden who's routinely telling us that Donald Trump's under control of Putin, and therefore, I guess that means Truth Social, which is Trump's platform, that would fall under this net. And really, it could encompass anything anybody decides, and the arbitrary nature of foreign control. New York Times and Washington Post is claiming half of the Republican party's, an operative on behalf of Putin or whatever evil actor they want to name that day. This, to me, is a piece of legislation which can cause a lot more harm than good.
There's no question TikTok is bad. Nancy Pelosi was all excited about this, which immediately is a flag. And TikTok is bad. It gives exceptions, like if you're focused on writing product reviews, travel reviews. Well, so is TikTok suddenly going to become a travel review and product review site? That's their end around?
Well, and the other thing is, I don't think most of the people who voted for this have ever used TikTok. I mean, it's a big issue. People are passing, trying to do things and put them into law when they've never had a firsthand user experience. I mean, I use TikTok, but I play tennis and golf, and I use it to let Roger Federer teach me tennis or Tiger Woods teach me golf. I mean, they're not all evil purposes. And I sort of like their algorithm because if I'm working on controlling my hook, it hones in on specific fit. So these algorithms can be positive in addition to horrible.
Yeah, so if you have golf swing dysphoria, it'll just overwhelm you with golf swing.
I definitely have that problem. But you're right. I mean, if you do have a sexual identity issue, it'll nail that down, and that But the larger question here is we've also got an artificial intelligence, which is not looming; it's already on the scene. And we've got algorithms which nobody really understands except a handful of people on the planet. And we're passing a piece of legislation. There's also something in there, my background's on Wall Street, and the notion is they're going to sell TikTok to somebody. Well, that's at least a $50 billion transaction. Maybe, I don't know quite what the internal value is of TikTok inside the ByteDance corporation. I think ByteDance has got a market cap of, I don't know, half a $3 to $4 to $500 billion. There's nobody can buy that. I know Steve Mnuchin, the former Treasury Secretary under Trump, is trying to put together a leveraged buyout group. I think assembling that capital is going to be a little difficult. So this whole thing seems to be suffused with naivete and ignorance.
Yes, and any sale, that's liquidity right back into the pocket of the CCP. So let's ban it, but not sell it, because we're just paying China, and that's going. Yeah, I mean, Chu Shaozi, the supposed CEO, who's Singaporean, and I think that's a PR stunt, putting him in as the face.
Didn't he also go to Harvard Business School?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, very charming guy.
Yeah. This is This is PR 101. I mean, he stumped a number of senators in his first appearance who immediately assumed he was Chinese. And I know the Singaporeans really well. And the defense minister Eng in Singapore, I've been in like easily a dozen times where he's met U.S. delegations, and he uses the same line every time. He goes, "We may be Chinese, but there's a reason we're not in China." And there's several things you don't do in Singapore. You don't spit gum onto the street. You don't take drugs into the country. You will be executed, seriously. And you don't spy for China. You will be executed, or so I've been told.
It's quite a list of 3 things.
So Chu Shaozi is walking a tightrope. He says he lives in Singapore with his wife and 2 boys, but he spent most of the last 15 years in Beijing. He's like Kai Fu Lee, the self-appointed genius of AI he was from Taiwan, worked for Microsoft, but lives in Beijing and has for the last 8 years. Well, he's made a decision on whether he's going to support Taiwan or China. He's on China's side. He'd better be correct. And same with Chu.
You've been to Taiwan. I think they've even got a day. Don't they have a national Colonel Rhett John Mills Day in Taiwan?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I joke about that, but that's I really when I took over the portfolio, and my intelligence community and State Department colleagues just said, "Hey, it's a waste of time." It was 2014. It's a waste of time. They're all penetrated. They're going to just collapse. Don't worry. Just don't even waste your time with them. And I go, no, absolutely not. I'm all about my special operations background. It's all about relationship building, and you need to give them the time of day at least, which we hadn't been for years. And the relationship has just really, really gone well. We now have troops on the ground, special operators on Kinmen, which is 4,000 feet away from China.
You can swim from mainland China to that island.
Yeah, you could essentially wade. You could wade at low tide.
Okay, it's even that. Oh, yeah. So I don't think people understand as well as you do just how complicated the whole Taiwan situation is. It has not one island; it's hundreds of islands, and some of them are basically. You look at a map, you think they're part of mainland China, just geographically.
Yeah, 1949, the communists attempted to come across this short gap to Kinmen and got absolutely schwacked. There was a Taiwanese armor unit on the beach doing exercises that they ran right into, and the Taiwanese tanks ran over them. I mean, literally, and slaughtered the communists. There was a. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, no, I want to swing back to Taiwan because you're a recognized expert on Taiwan, but I want to close the piece on TikTok. And just one of my concerns of why I don't think this legislation is a clear cut thing, and that we've got a government now that can't shoot down a communist Chinese spy balloon, and their CFIUS, which is part of the Treasury Department, can't seem to stop the Chinese from buying U.S. farmland. I mean, we've got a lot of people inside the government, the U.S. government right now, which seems to be, if they've got a most favored nation, it's certainly China. And China is getting away with murdering a lot of things, but without our government really defending us against this. And yet we have this piece of legislation about TikTok. And then you link it back into this case before the Supreme Court today with government spying, which, by the way, did not involve TikTok. And so there's this whole surveillance state issue, which these pieces are interconnected, and I'm deeply suspicious about why TikTok in specific would come up right now when it does, and whether this is a piece of distraction that we're dealing with when there's a bigger game afoot.
Yeah, I think the tipping point on China, there was a Wall Street Journal article, I think, about everybody trying to get their investments out of China. Well, at this point in time, getting brick and mortar out of China is just not going to work.
Good luck with that. We got a couple $1 trillion in there. You better. I used to teach accounting. You're better off to just call your accountant and say, we better mark this to zero because
Yeah.
we ain't getting it out.
Yeah. The global. I mean, this is the, I call it the James Breyer and Angela Chao scenario. Everybody's trying to get their money. At this point, it's too late. And same with people realize that China is bad. The tipping point has been achieved, even inside the U.S. government. But the problem is we're 10 years past the date. We're closing the gates, and they've already infiltrated most of our institutions already.
So you share my skepticism that this may not be this. This is not this TikTok legislation is not the silver bullet to deal with China.
It's TikTok is bad. It is a surveillance system. Giving China several $100 billion or whatever the valuation of TikTok is cash in their pocket for more malign. It's like having a gun buyback program, which it's been shown time and again. What do people do when they sell a gun back to the county or the city? They go out and buy another gun.
They got some ready cash to get that bigger, better gun.
Yeah. I'll turn in my flintlock and I'll get an evil assault. And people do this all the time. It's a joke.
Well, so let's leave this one open as to we've got to learn a lot more about it. Then it's likely to get stalled in the Senate, and if it doesn't get stalled in the Senate, that tells you an awful lot about something going on that I'm not quite sure what. But let's the piece I wanted to get to before we have to wrap up is Taiwan, and the likelihood of with Biden in office and our defense establishment in disarray, the likelihood of Xi in China, who has his own problems, big problems, the likelihood that he'll want to do something about China now rather than wait, or do something about Taiwan now rather than wait.
Yeah, he's under pressure at home. He's concerned about being assassinated or toppled at home. He has to show delivery and progress on something with Taiwan. I think with the storm season beginning in this month, so April, and going till October, out of the several courses of action possible, I think him attempting to strip away Kinmen, the closest county 4,000 feet away from China, you can wade there essentially at low tide to some of the small rock outcroppings off of Kinmen. I think that's the danger and we do have officially declared now a special operations base on Kinmen. That's our special operators are training the Taiwanese how to repel fast boats, how to repel an assault on the airport. There's one runway on Kinmen. So I think that might be his ploy, is to try to strip away Kinmen and then declare, hey, I got part of Taiwan at least.
So to claim a partial victory, the U.S. Navy is really not in a position to do anything about it. We're spread thin all over the world, so pick off a piece, claim a victory of sorts, and wait for the next big move when you're in a stronger position.
Yes. It's the special operators are a good move. The U.S. Navy, even if functional, can't really get in between Kinmen and the mainland because it's a few thousand feet and it's very shallow.
So it's funny. I've got my triathlon watch here is telling me that a friend of mine just went on to TikTok, and do I want to reach out to him?
Wow.
Oh my. Oh my. What a brave new world we're in. This is something. Well, John, you've got such quickly, I love your name, Colonel Rhett John Mills. The Rhett, I assume, comes from being retired.
Yes, yes.
And it's a great moniker. Now, what do you tend to cover on your website? I want to, or on your Substack and all your show and all the other offerings. Are there themes we ought to point out? We can direct people to take you in, tune you in.
Oh, thank you, Bill. Yeah, Colonel Rhett John, Substack, Getter, and Truth. And I have a podcast on the America Out Loud News Network. I do a show on Patriot Television, General Flynn's new network. But I cover, I mean, national security is my thing, but I also cover Chinese influence operations, domestic issues that are relevant and being stoked and that are dangerous to our constitutional republic, and things like that. And then I got lots of pictures of golden retrievers because I want to make it clear that I love dogs.
Well, I'm with you on that, on the dog part. That I'm also with you on the other pieces. You've raised something, and I wanted to talk about just before we have to wrap up. What on earth is going on with Mitch McConnell's wife's family, the Chao family, and um, I guess her Laine Chao's youngest sister was killed in mysterious circumstances when her Tesla backed into a lake, and a lot of loose threads there.
Oh yeah, thank you. I did a detailed article on Gateway Pundit. This whole story is a national security story. I think Angela and her husband James were trying to depart the Chinese investment portfolio world, and I think this was a message. James has a very wealthy. Now, his investment firm, I couldn't believe it, is actually blacklisted as a Chinese influence company. And James did an interview at Davos that was just loaded with coded messages. And I think they were trying to telegraph they're leaving. In the year 2024, the ability to do a remote operation through the Tesla network to lock the doors and back the car into the lake, totally within the world of the possible at this point in time. And not saying that's exactly what happened, but I've called twice to the sheriff to see if they've subpoenaed or asked for the data, the network logs of the Tesla back to the Tesla servers that are in Shenzhen, China.
Well, there are a lot of people, including me, who've been really troubled by Mitch McConnell's in-laws and their deep ties through their ostensibly their shipping business, but it sounds like they've also got an investment portfolio and its ties to the Chinese Communist Party and Mitch's seeming feet of clay when it comes to doing things aggressively against China and standing up for U.S. interests. And then we have the timing of his quote retirement, which was within a week of his sister-in-law being killed.
Yeah, mysterious. I mean, Angela, Foremost Shipping is an American company and is the largest owner of ships, but these are not U.S. flag ships. They're flagged under other countries. But Angela also sat on the board of the Bank of China and China Shipbuilding, two dangerous Chinese influence, civil military fusion influence companies. But she departed those boards. But this whole story stinks.
Well, then I've got a cliffhanger for us, John. Would you commit to figuring out what happened, and when you do, come back and tell all?
Yeah, I seem to have gotten a lot of attention. I've said several things and made several fact-based observations that everybody else has missed. And something is definitely wrong. I hope it's Don Jackson is the sheriff for Blanco County. It's only 12,000 in the whole county. It's 40 miles west of San Antonio. I hope him and the Texas AG are able to figure something out before the FBI swoops in to cover up everything.
Well, let's stay on this one. We appear to be peering into something that's pretty dangerous, and I guess with that though can come some truth, maybe some unpleasant truths. So, John, I love the moniker Colonel Rhett John Mills. I'm really happy to have you on and talk about this. And it sounds like we've only touched the tip of the iceberg of the things you know about. So let's plan to have you back on. And so thanks for here, and also thanks for all of you listening and watching. Of course, the Bill Walton Show, and you can find us on all the major podcast platforms and also YouTube, Rumble, etc. And I don't think we've said anything today in particular that would get this episode banned from YouTube, but you never know. I just hope I don't get banned from TikTok because I won't get all these great messages on my bat phone. So anyway, John, thanks, and thanks you all for joining, and we'll be talking again real soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill.